Good morning from Winnipeg, Canada, and good evening for the distinguished guests, those who have joined today with us for a very special webinar session, and we called it Peace by Peaceful Means. Ladies and gentlemen, and dear audience, we are very privileged to have His Excellency Dr. Lian Sakhong joining us to discuss some of the aspects of the issues and topic that you have decided. Before I begin, as a tradition, we do treaty acknowledgement. The Conflict and Resilience Research Institute is located on original lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of Métis Nation. We respect the treaties and that were made on these territories, and we acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Ladies and gentlemen, Conflict and Resilience Research Institute is a Winnipeg-based research think tank which studies conflict and its peaceful resolution. We have joined today and invited guests to speak on one of the research projects that we have undertaken since 2017. And we are talking about the displacement that happened due to the conflict. Today, we have invited a very special guest, and let me briefly introduce our keynote speaker, His Excellency Dr. Lian Sakhong. Dr. Lian is the Ministry of Federal Union Affairs in the National Unity Government of Burma. He is appointed by committee representing Pyangdisu Lutao, commonly called as known as CRPH, with the mandate from Interim Chin National Consultative Committee. He also serves as the Vice Chairman of the Chin National Front. Dr. Lian was honored with the Martin Luther King Prize for 2007 in Sweden. He was the Vice Chairman of Union Peace Dialogue Joint Committee, also commonly known as UPDJC, under Myanmar's peace process in the previous governments. Moreover, he served as a General Secretary of United Nationalities League for Democracy, UNLD, a coalition of political parties formed by the ethnic nationalities of Burma, and was also a General Secretary of Chin National League for Democracy, a party winning 3 parliamentary seats in the 1990 election. Dr. Lian has written numerous books and papers on the political and social situations in modern Burma, published in both English and Burmese. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to have him. Thank you for joining us, sir. Today, we also have distinguished guests, among who Dr. David Newman. He's a Rotarian and peace builder. Professor Dr. Imdad Haq from University of Manitoba. Dr. Hilal Mahiuddin from North-South University, Bangladesh. And last but not the least, Mr. Habib from Rohingya refugee camp in Bangladesh. Today, we are going to follow a sequence. We are going to invite His Excellency first to speak, and then we are going to invite Mr. Felix Haas also to add some of the comments on this topic. And then we'll open up for a moderated Q&A session. So without further ado, let me welcome Dr. Lian Sakhong, His Excellency, for your part. Thank you. The floor is yours, sir. Kindly unmute.
Oh, thank you so very much, Dr. Kausu Ahmed and other friends, for inviting me to speak at this important session. And I'm very grateful for your invitation. And the topic that you are giving me is peace by peaceful means. I wish it is true for all the times and everywhere in this world. We would like to have peace by peaceful means, but unfortunately, in many times in our human history, peace cannot be achieved through peaceful means alone. So we have to struggle in various means. We have to struggle. We have to do even sometimes engaging armed conflict and fighting. As you mentioned and introduced me kindly, I was involved in this peace process for many years and engaging, try to find peaceful solution in our country problems. Our country problem of 70 years, over 70 years problem. Try to find a peaceful solutions. So our country problem is political problems. So this is political problem. So we have to find a political solution. That was what we believed. That was what we have done. So that's the reason why we engaged nation-wide ceasefire agreement with the previous government starting in 2012. Since 2012, we find a means to sign what we call was nation-wide ceasefire (NCA). It was signed in October. Just yesterday was the 5th anniversary of NCA. 2015, October 15, we signed that agreement. So I was kind enough by my friends asked me to draft that NCA agreement. The first draft was done by me. So we so hopeful that we would find peace through peaceful means by engaging political dialogue based on NCA process. But unfortunately, that process was not successful. Not successful not only because of the process was long, it took 5 years, but while we are engaging that peace process, this military came back, took over the state power in this year, February the 1st. So after this February the 1st, this military coup, we have no choice but based on election result and the people mandate, we have to form this NUG, National Unity Government, and engage our struggle in a different way now. So what I'm trying to say here is that NCA process, certain people are still hoping that NCA process was still alive, is still alive, and some of the people think that it can be possible to continue and so on. But unfortunately, that is not true. That is not the case anymore. Because NCA was designed in such a way that through NCA process, we would engage political dialogue. And through political dialogue, we would adopt a democratic principle and federal principle, which would be signed as Union Peace Accord. Based on the Union Peace Accord, we would change 2008 Constitution, which was drafted by the military for military. Drafted by the military dictatorship for to rule our country under the military dictatorship. So that's what we would like to change. We wanted to change through NCA. But now, after the military coup, the people rejected altogether 2008 Constitution, the military Constitution, the Constitution what was sustained the military dictatorship in our country. So we totally abolished 2008 Constitution by the people. Of course, the military is still using that Constitution, but it is we totally reject that. Since the people of Burma rejected 2008 Constitution, then NCA process is meaningless. What we are going to do? NCA process was tried to change 2008 Constitution, but here 2008 Constitution is no longer exists. So that is the situation that we are here. And on the other hand, the NUG government is trying to find our country's solution in a little bit different way. A little bit different way meaning the way the people wanted it, the way the people desired it. So this is where we are now. And then the people started demonstrate against this military coup in early February. And then we formed CRPH by elected MPs. CRPH meaning Committee for Representing Pitong Su Luto. Pitong Su meaning union, Luto meaning parliament, union parliament. So the CRPH also eventually formed National Unity Government. That is where I joined as a minister now. The reason that I joined the National Unity Government is actually the same reason that I joined the peace process. Through peace process, we wanted to adopt democratic and federal principle, as I mentioned. But in 5 years, we could not get what we wanted. Every proposal that we made was most of the time rejected by the military group. So we could not get a meaningful principle through that peace process. But as soon as the military coup take place, we drafted what we call was Federal Democracy Charter. And in this Federal Democracy Charter, we include most of the principles that we proposed for the past 5 years. And then that was quickly agreed with ethnic groups and elected CRPH. CRPH quickly agreed. Within 2 weeks, we have agreed 5 guiding principles and 37 federal policy principles. So that is what we have been struggling for all these years. Actually, the main principle that we proposed was we ethnic groups started in 1962 already. That was in 1962, 1988, 2005. We adopted those principles. And that principle was at the peace conference, I myself presented at the peace conference in 2016. But we could not get it. So those principles are now in Federal Charter. So I thought that with this group of people, elected MPs, and then those who are representing the people, we could do business together. We could rebuild our country together. We could rebuild our future together. So I'm so hopeful that I think we would be able to do this thing. And then now, the NUG government is working so hard based on that principle. And then the way we are doing, the way we are struggling, I think our strategy is very simple, but multiple kind of strategy that we are adopting. And in previously our country, since 1962, there were several movements against military dictatorship. But most of the time, the method that we used was we took the street and demonstrate. We do this, the same again. But previously, it was the only way we demonstrate against the military dictatorship. But now, not only a demonstration, but also all the public workers, the government workers, engage in what we call a civil disobedience movement, CDM. So they withdraw from the government. They boycott the government. So they boycott from the government, and then now is more than 70% of our country workers join the CDM. So all the CDMers are now registered under NUG government. So if you could see very quickly that under NUG government, more government workers are registered rather than serving under military council, under Min Aung Hlaing. And then thirdly, why we will win this struggle is previously the past 70 years, the struggle for democracy and federalism, especially armed struggle, was engaged only by ethnic minority group. So the struggle was only half-hearted. Only half of the population and half of the country are engaging that struggle. But now the whole country joined, and the whole population formed themselves as People Defense Forces. So there are People Defense Forces, ethnic arms organization. We join hand in hand, and then we struggle together. And then the fourth factor is that, for example, in 1962 and 1988, when we struggled for democracy and federalism, in 1988, there was no overseas Burmese community, because since 1962, the country was isolated so much, and then they practiced a closed door policy. So there was no overseas Burmese community. But now, millions of overseas Burmese community who are living in North America, Europe, Australia, and so on. They are the group of people who came out from our country after 88 movement. So they are already politically oriented people. They are nationalists, those who are fighting for democracy and freedom and peace. So now is these overseas Burmese community are our strength. They collected money, raised funding, a fund for CDMs to support those engaged in CDM movement. So everything, for example, our country NUG government still is function based on the fund raised by overseas Burmese community and people from inside group. So this is a very strong strength that we have. And finally, I think international community also supporting us. For example, European Parliament is already recognizing NUG and CRPH as the only legitimate representative of the country. And then, for example, just yesterday, ASEAN issued a statement, which is not so strong in our view, but strong enough for ASEAN standard, saying that they would not invite Min Aung Hlaing, which is very strong message for Min Aung Hlaing. So I think for Min Aung Hlaing, there is no space. What he had done is a failed coup. He cannot rule the country. The whole country, he terrorized the people alive. He terrorizes the whole country, but the people strongly resist against him. So he will fail. He is failing. So we will win. The people will win. And then the best way, the best means to achieve peace is to eliminate Min Aung Hlaing and this military council. And our best hope for the future of Burma, the best hope for peace in our country is to abolish this military dictatorship. So long as there is a military dictatorship and the constitution written by them, then we cannot hope for a genuine peace. So we have to abolish this military dictatorship plus all the laws that they adopted to suppress the people. So I think this is our way of doing things, and then we'll achieve it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, His Excellency, for very encouraging words. And this is important that we listen from you and the efforts that you are taking collectively to restore peace in Burma. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Mr. Felix Haas. And as I mentioned briefly in my intro, that he is a friend of CRRIC, and he supports CRRIC in organizing webinar series Peace by Peaceful Means and on the situation and developments in Burma. Felix Haas has been primarily working in Burma and broader Southeast Asia, and as in an independent capacity on issues of economic development and peace with the private and development sector, as well as occasionally in the think tank space. Mr. Felix Haas's interest in Burma and beyond have been pathways to achieving peace through economic development initiatives in Myanmar's ethnic borderlands, as per the concept of turning battlefields into marketplaces, quote unquote. Felix has been a scholar of the complex political economy dynamics in Myanmar's borderlands, geopolitical and international relations dynamics, and is committed to promoting dialogue and mutual understanding as a contribution for the resolution of political divisions and conflict in Burma. So this is a very brief biography. He does more than explained in the biography here. So, Mr. Felix, floor is yours. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, also Dr. Sakhong for your words, which I think in your own personal story, transitioning from a leader of really the Chin ethnic identity and a leader in the peace process to joining the national unity government. I think we have learned a lot from also your personal story here. I think you have really raised in your keynote address so many points and dynamics, and I would like to perhaps just highlight a few points that the audience might be interested in understanding the broader context and the very complex dynamics that Myanmar has certainly witnessed over the last decades and especially now in the last month as well. So let me perhaps highlight the challenges or the framework of the peace process overall and where I think the friction points have come about. I think really what symbolized to me the Myanmar peace process in the time leading up to the nationwide ceasefire agreement in October 2015, it was really this tripartite table that really showed and demonstrated that there were three major forces in the country, really, the ethnic communities, the military, and the civilian government. And I think all these sides, had different starting points and different positions in many regards, and it had been a very difficult effort to, in fact, then even reach the nationwide ceasefire agreement in October 2015. At that time, the 16 negotiating parties were supposed to sign the nationwide ceasefire agreement in October 2015. That, in fact, was not successful. Only half of the anticipated signatories, in fact, then did sign the agreement. And I think that is where one of the issues, in fact, started, because we had a peace process at that time of two different paces. We did have the signatories and non-signatories, in fact, involved in the same process. And we had, as per this ceasefire agreement, we had a process, in fact, in which political dialogue was supposed to start while other groups had not yet found a settlement, and while conflict was continuing at that time. And that was a critical juncture, I believe, just months, or basically 1 month before the 2015 election then, that this nationwide ceasefire agreement at that time could not be accomplished. Then the NLD government, in fact, inherited this process that was at these two different paces, as I called it, and started the dialogue process. I could mobilize two additional groups as signatories, but had new dynamics in Rakhine State obviously coming up, not only in with regards to the Rohingya communities and their experiences in 2017 onward, but also in terms of the Rakhine ethnic communities that engage in even more and unprecedented struggle at that time. So that is, I believe, where the issues and the divisions, in fact, started. During the term of NLD, I think the focus was on the peace process itself with the ethnic communities. That was a declared priority of the NLD government, certainly. But what did happen, and what I think many didn't really observe, were exactly these points that Dr. Sakhong also mentioned, the dynamics and actually the friction points between the civilian and the military side. I remember analysts even in 2018 warning that there could be a coup, that there could be the military could challenge the rule of the civilian government. At that time, that didn't materialize, but the frictions remained and led to then what we then saw unfolding after the 2020 election, and then starting from 1st of February 2021. So now we are left really, and I mean, I think Dr. Sakhong has really outlined all these dynamics and the roles, the really challenges that the ethnic communities now really have in terms of finding their best possible way to move forward and to find actually representation in this federal union. That indeed is now the core challenge that ethnic communities and ethnic armed organizations are at this stage facing. How to really construct this union when a very basic process that was there did basically fell apart with the with the seizure of power by the military. So I believe it has left the people in a very difficult situation, and this is perhaps what I would just like to add here over the last couple of months, where not only the struggle, in fact, has intensified and has emerged starting from February, but where really I think an economic struggle likewise has affected the people. We have seen, and I think many friends of ours back in Myanmar have been affected. Their families have been affected by COVID-19. They've been affected by businesses, in fact, shutting down and not being able to operate, by restrictions and all of the like. And that, of course, has made this struggle a very difficult one, because at the end, for this really uprising, for the for really the traction that is required for that movement, really the economic breadth is really one of the core questions. How can the people sustain, in fact, their resistance, and how can they actually have the capacity to voice out and not to fall back into a day-to-day life and day-to-day business to feed their families? So these are perhaps some of the thoughts to frame and to complement what Dr. Sakhong has said and explained. I believe now one of the core questions is, of course, I mean, how to find the time when negotiation and dialogue and a peaceful means can actually return, when the political process can really gain traction, and what the ways in which that can happen can be. Would this be a fundamental change? In fact, as per vision of the national unity government, would ethnic parties have a leading role? So I think there are different elements really to it in which we can see this process moving forward. And my hope would be that the inclusion, especially of ethnic voices in the process, can just be enhanced. That not only of the ethnic voices in the peace process, but also, of course, of the Rohingya communities in, I mean, back in Rakhine State in particular, but also in Bangladesh, how a settlement for all these underlying issues can in fact be found. Perhaps a few words, just, I mean, as one dimension, I think that would be very interesting for our audience also to hear from Dr. Sakhong, what can be the support really that the international community can offer. And what we can see over the last month is that the international community has been indeed struggling to find entry points to engage and to help the people of Myanmar. In many ways, I mean, the humanitarian access has in many ways been blocked. The platform of the United Nations and also the ASEAN platform have not necessarily proven effective to really foster any change beyond statements and without major actions that have been taken. And that is, of course, concerning. Also, when we look at the region, when we look at the dynamics in the neighboring countries and in Asia overall, of course, we can see that the geopolitical landscape has also changed. We see different new dynamics, of course, involved in Myanmar, from, of course, the dynamics within the community of ASEAN members, but also the intentions of both India and China to, in fact, expand and to engage with Myanmar economically. So all of these dynamics, of course, play into it, as well as the overall geopolitical tensions that we have seen in the world over the last approximately 1.5 years. So all of this plays, of course, into the whole dynamics in Myanmar as well, and it's hard to see that when there are few entry points for support, that really there are these challenges faced by the people. And I think this is something that we would also like to take up in this webinar series, of course. What can be the entry points for internationals overall to support the struggle, perhaps the exile community or institutionally, what can be the pathways? I think this is one of the core points that we would like to raise and to discuss. Yeah, with that, I mean, just really as a few additions and additional thoughts, I'm very glad to hand it back to Kausa then.
Thank you very much, Felix, for wonderful questions. So, dear audience, we are going to switch over to conversational dialogue mode now, as we promised before. And we would be possibly focusing questions mostly to His Excellency Dr. Lian. And of course, Felix, please join in complementing the responses that we have started receiving. So first off, let me go back to our distinguished guest today, David Newman, Rotarian and Peace Builder and advisor to CRRIC, and Dr. Professor Emdad Haq from University of Manitoba, and Dr. Helal Mahyuddin. I would like to request David to come first, and I would request also to limit questions just for the sake of time, maximum 2 to 3 questions. So David, floor is yours. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing your challenges and being such a big part of the solution. My question relates to the role that 300 million Indigenous people worldwide, through their various voices and organizations, might play a supportive role, especially with the amazing, resilient ethnic communities in Myanmar, who are a big part, obviously, of the future. And I just wanted to say that I analogize this to, it seems ridiculous, but to the Canadian struggle, where the replacement for the military would be the command and control government of Canada, which I'm part of and have been part of, in the sense that we were unaware, uneducated, misunderstanding, misinformed settlers, and part of the ways of dealing with what was seen originally to be the ethnic problem in Canada. And now, of course, we've come full circle through Truth and Reconciliation and the re-education of the Canadian people towards a move forward for empowerment and I would say of our Indigenous people in such a way that even in Canada, the wording that I now use and the wording that many of the leading First Nations and Inuit and Métis people use is a reconfederation of our country. So I find it very easy to analogize your situation from a position of peace, prosperity, and an acceptance and acknowledgement by those in power that we have to change, and we have to model for the world in freedom, prosperity, and constitutional democracy a better way forward. So I share that with you. My question is, how can the Indigenous peoples of the world, certainly starting with my country of Canada, be part of the solution which you're working towards?
Thank you. His Excellency, if you unmute the mic, sir.
Well, thank you so very much for your comment and your question, and then telling us about the Canadian situations, especially Indigenous people. I think this is a kind of interesting comparison between such a situation. So if you look at the map of Burma, and then if you identify those, you use the term Indigenous people, who use ethnic nationalities. So we occupy, I'm a Chin, Christian, minority, double minority. So ethnic nationalities, ethnic Indigenous people occupy more than 60% of the country territory. More than 60% belongs to ethnic minorities. But all these 70 years of our history, we never have any power. We are, we are discriminated. We were not given power. whenever we are struggling for our right, whenever we are doing for, democracy and freedom, we are accused as secessionists, separatists. And then we have been, suppressed for so long. And then we did not have any other choice, although we wish we could have a peaceful means. So all the ethnic group holding arms and fighting against the regimes and the government. So I think 70 years of struggle is a very, very long struggle. 70 years is 3-4 generations. So we lost so many resources. We lost so many human life. We lost so many, for example, human memories. We are not able to learn our language. We are not able to practice our culture. We are not even able to practice our religion. So what they are doing is the so-called nation-building process. Through that nation-building process, what they did was they, imposed one language. So in Burma, only the Myanmar language is the only official language. All other ethnic languages are, not allowed to promote, not allowed to protect, not allowed to learn. So I think all the languages they are killing. Killing the language is genocide. Killing the culture is genocide. So I think this is what they are practicing. And one language, one religions. They promulgated Buddhism as a state religion in 1961. So since that Buddhism was promulgated as state religion, all the law imposed on or to promote Buddhism still exists. That is why Christians in our country are persecuted. That is why Muslims in our country are persecuted. That is why legitimately persecuted Rohingya minority groups, Chin Christian minority group, Kachin Christian minority group. That is the policy adopted in 1961 already. So people forgot it. And then finally, they tried to eliminate all ethnic groups and impose their nationality. One ethnic, one religion, one language policy, nation building process. One ethnic meaning, and eventually they started with Buddhism, followed by the Myanmar language, and thirdly by Myanmar ethnicity. And in 1989, they changed our country name from Burma to Myanmar. Myanmar is just one ethnic group in the country. So they changed our country, pretending or telling the world that in this country, there are only one ethnic group called Myanmar who are Buddhists. So they have a saying from 11th century AD on, Bodha Bata Myanmar Lu Myo, meaning to be in Myanmar is to be Buddhist. So they allow to exist in this country in Burma. They allow to exist Buddhism and Myanmar ethnicity. So that's now when you call our country name Myanmar, it is actually insulting all other ethnic groups. For example, we the Chin never were part of the Myanmar kingdom, Myanmar country. We were put under British colonial rule together by imperialism. So it was like Pakistan, India, Burma was under one British rule. So after that independence, we all, for example, we the Chin are divided into 3 countries now. One part is called Chin State in Burma. The bigger part is called Mizoram State in India. And then smaller part is Bom area, Chittagong Hill Tech in Bangladesh. Our country is now divided by those outsiders. So this is the situation that we are facing in this country. That is why we are struggling so long. That is why we are fighting so long. But we opted for a peaceful means, as I mentioned, but unfortunately it was failed. So let me mention also one point which I forgot to mention in my first presentation is that why Min Online take over the state power? why this military coup happened. I think one of the reasons is he tried to prevent that this NCA-based peace process, political negotiation. The reason is that in 2019, 28th of October, Aung San Suu Kyi declared her own federal principle. And that principle was totally similar to the ethnic group proposal, which was based in our principle in 2005. So that was similar. Then they realized that if civilian government and ethnic group comes together, there is no place for military dictatorship. I think that was what they are most afraid of. I think that is one of the main reasons that Myanmar came to power through military coup. In order to establish military dictatorship forever under 2008 constitution. So I think that is a kind of situation that we are facing. Thank you for your question. And then I think ethnic group situation in the country, it has been forgotten for so long. That's why we are struggling all this year. And then only at that, as Dr. Haas has mentioned, ethnic group are at least in political process recognized under NCA process only. It was a tripartite. The military group, the civilians government, or democratic forces that we call, and ethnic groups. So that was the only time in 70 years of our history, ethnic indigenous group are recognized as one of political forces in the country. And I think that is a big achievement, but it was not nearly enough, not enough. So we have to do more. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Let me bring Professor Dr. Imdad now. Sir, floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Kausar. It was very interesting. Thank you, Dr. Sakhong, for illuminating us with a lot of facts and explaining the dynamics. I have just one observation and question to you. You just mentioned that 60% of these ethnic groups consist of 60%. So in statistical terms, 60% does not mean minority. That means majority altogether, all these ethnic groups. So the unification of these ethnic groups leads to majority, not minority. So the unification is the recipe to, challenge the dominant group at the Myanmar you mentioned. So what are the major challenges in this unification? And that's number one. And number two, that with regard to Dr. Felix Haas's issues about Rakhine state and the Rohingya ethnicity, what is the policy of this national unity government in the long run with regard to this displaced population? What's the vision and what's the position of this unity government? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, sir. I think let me clarify a little bit. 60% of the territory, not in terms of population, but you are right. This is not a minority problem. It is a major problem. So, but among the ethnic group, there are many ethnic groups, many different religious groups, many different, we are different. But that is how the military majority dominant group are trying to divide, and they divide and rule us all the time, their policy. So that's, but eventually we are now coming together. We are united together. Now it's not only ethnic groups, but as I mentioned in my previous remark, the Burma majority and all ethnic groups are now coming together, standing together, fighting together for democracy and federalism. I think this is the best hope for our country. And then about the minority groups in not only in Rakhine state, but all over the country. I think our struggle is more or less all the same. But unfortunately for those Rohingya minority group, 1982 citizen law was a big burden for them. Not only actually for the Rohingya group. It was meant for Indian descendant and Chinese descendant. So both for both. So there are hundreds of thousands of even millions of Chinese, those who also are discriminated, those who could not enjoy citizen right in our country. So that is, I think, the problem. So all our struggle is the same. All minority groups, in terms of religious minority, in terms of ethnic minority, in terms of whatever you define it. So all minority group, we have to struggle together. And I think NUG government, we have a special policy because in previous government you cannot see such a ministry like a Federal Union Affairs Ministry. The reason that we formed this ministry is to find this solution, all minority groups coming together. And for example, I have discussed with all many minority groups, including Rohingya groups, 2 times, 3 times already. And then what we are discussing is, instead of NUG finding the solution for you, we have to find the solution together. You are part of our struggle. You are part of the country. You are part of the nation. So we have to find together. So in the future, now we are starting, for example, we are looking at drafting a new constitution for our future. In this process, all these minority groups will be included. What is their desire? What they deserve for so long already? How we are going to protect them? Minority protection. Every citizen, they have the right. So I think that is, and in such a situation, what we need is federal system is the best option for our future. From 1947 to till today, the military government, they use the term union, but what they are practicing is not a union, not a federal system. It is a unitary, based on the so-called nation building process on 3 notions that I mentioned: 1 ethnicity, 1 religion, 1 language. So that process was wrong. That created our country problem. So another option, the better option, is a federal system where all member states of the union can enjoy political right, where all the citizens can enjoy their citizen right, where all these language groups can enjoy their language right, their cultural right. So I think we should find the solution through this federal arrangement. I think this is a better option for all of us. So what we are trying to define now is, we adopted, as I mentioned earlier, in Federal Charter, 37 federal principles and 5 guiding principles. All these are very important. That is what, for example, in 1962, we ethnic group demanded that 5 principles, 5 guiding principles. That was what the military afraid of. That was the reason why they took state power in 1962. But now we come back. And then I think these 5 principles and 37, now we enlarge as we drafted. And then I think what I'm trying to say is that our future, we will define together, we will build together, we will find the solution together. I think the previously, for example, the ruling Burma military groups, they thought they have all the answer. They drafted the constitution 2 times, and then they imposed on that. It was failed. But now, as we go for the future, we will bring all the people together. We have to work together. All minority group, all language, we have to work together. All the citizens, we must do together. Otherwise, there is no solution for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Professor Imdad, if you unmute, sir, kindly.
Just a quick comment that to overcome this divide and rule, that happened like British did in colonies and so on, it needs sacrifice and give and take, because unless the leaders of different ethnic groups see the big picture and sacrifice their smaller interest, it is very difficult to sustain the unity. That's why I think, leadership is very, very important, that to rise above and look at the big picture and common interest. I hope that your government, takes that leadership and provide that kind of, leadership with sacrificing and give and take negotiation. So that's why conversation, among the groups and so on, and give and take is very important. In Canada, we have same struggle with French and English and indigenous people. We have same struggle. That's why, negotiation all the time and mediation that works. Pakistan couldn't sustain after 1947 based on federal system. It didn't work because execution was going in the wrong direction. One dominant group, imposed the Urdu language, the way you explained, that one particular group, one particular language. So my main point is that conversation and negotiation among different ethnic groups and sustain the unity in the long term requires that kind of sacrifice and give and take approach. Otherwise, unified approach will not sustain. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. I would like to say a few words on that. I think the leadership in 70 years of our country history, only the NUG government now is acting president is a Kachin, come from a minority Kachin groups. And then our prime minister is ethnic Grand. And then majority of NUG cabinet members are from ethnic minority groups and then women. And then also, I think dialogue, I totally believe in the power of dialogue. And what we are doing is, apart from NUG government, we are also creating a platform called NUCC, National Unity Consultative Council. In that council, all the stakeholders from the whole country are joining. At least now 28 organizations are working together from all 7 states and 7 regions. And then continuously, for example, we are redrafting our charter for kind of interim, as using for interim constitutions. Now, 5 months already, every day, 3 hours. I've spent 5 months continuously for, every day. That is where we are engaging such a dialogue, trying to build understanding, trying to build trust. And I think mutual recognition and mutual respect is a key in this process. I think we are, in our country history, such a dialogue never happened. Such a platform never exists. So I think this is what NUG and CRPAs are creating. I think that is very, very important and beautiful process that we are engaging. I think this is kind of thing we are going to do more. And eventually we would be able to engage in the inside the country, or now in the process of course, this is conducted online. So majority of participants are, of course, from inside the group. But I think what I'm trying to say is that inside, one day, physical with the people process will be, I think, engaged. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before I invite our distinguished guest, Dr. Helal, I would like to request Mr. Felix Haas, do you have any complimentary comments based on the discussions that we have had so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this aspect of unity is, of course, critical, and that is actually where the force is lying, really, for any political change in the country. I just would like to highlight perhaps the level of how throughout history, these divisions have been induced in Myanmar. You mentioned the colonial times when Burma proper and frontier Burma existed. That is the colonial heritage that the country started off with at the time of its independence. What we have then seen also is as another dividing factor, all the different levels of conflict that existed in different parts of the country. We have seen major shifts. We have seen shifts in the 1990s, for instance, till the 2010s, that particular Karen state had been conflict affected. Then the conflict moved to Kachin state from 2011 onward. And we see that, for instance, in recent years, that in Arakan state and Rakhine state, that also the fighting between the military and the Arakan army, I mean, had been a major issue for the people in Paleva, for instance, in southern Chin state as well. So all of these dynamics, I mean, have been there, of course, and they've created divisions and tensions throughout. But even on the level, when we look at one single ethnic group, I mean, we can see even at the example of the Karen that also, for instance, religious divisions, I mean, even have managed to splinter the Karen resistance movement in the 1990s, basically, with KNU, DKBA emerging and other smaller fractions. And then lastly, I mean, indeed, I mean, why one may argue, I mean, it has been, part of a strategic repository of the military to deal with the ethnic struggle. I mean, there had been, of course, this divide and rule approach. I mean, through, for instance, the Border Guard Force program, where then inside the different groups, smaller groups were pressured to, in fact, convert to the Tamador side. So, I mean, wherever we look, I mean, there have been divisions throughout history, and that is now what we are dealing with. But we are not just dealing with that on a national level, because, of course, any of the ethnic struggle that we have seen in recent years, it only has been, I mean, these are populations in the border areas of the country. And at the end, I mean, the ethnic struggle can only be maintained with the support, for instance, of neighboring countries to providing humanitarian access, to taking care of refugee population, to supporting communities in exile. So all of this has an international dimension, of course, also. And these are very different countries that are neighboring Burma, basically, that obviously we can see with very different dynamics as well. So it really is a mammoth task that the National Unity Government has there. Has really emerged on, I believe, to build this unity and the spirit.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Hilal, thanks for waiting. Please come in, and if you have any observations and comments. Thank you.
His Excellency Dr. Sakhong, I really have a question. It's supplementary questions to Dr. Imdad. He already asked about your government's, Unity government's Rohingya policy. I am a little bit interested about knowing about their repatriation, because Bangladesh is talking about repatriation. So do you have, your Unity government has any policy, any planning or any kind of commitments to the Rohingyas stranded in Bangladesh about their repatriation? This is number one. And I have a curiosity about your government's ways, policies or means to convey the peacemaking messages to the United Nations. How do you communicate with the United Nations? And because you have a government, and this government must have communication with United Nations, at least you convey to this institution your government's peacemaking mandates and other information. So I am a little bit curious to know about that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question, and Felix, also thank you for your complimentary comment. Thank you very much. I think let me start with Felix. What you mentioned about this international assistance, cross-border assistance, humanitarian assistance. All these things are hugely needed because the fighting is so intensified. The military council cannot control the country, but they terrorize. They cannot rule, but they can terrorize the whole country. So I think the population, the entire population, will soon facing the hunger, food shortages, and everything. I think we need now is hundreds of thousands of internally displaced persons and so on. And you mentioned about the fighting situation from 2011 to before the military coup. After the military coup, the fighting mainly happening in Chin State and Granny State, Gaya State. And then even today, I think between Hakka, which is my hometown, and then the capital of Chin State, and just 20 miles away from my hometown, there was huge fighting still happening. So I think this fighting, and then they destroyed Kantlang, they destroyed already, Mindat they destroyed, just Bandung and so on. So I think the situation is getting worse and worse. And for that reason, I think we need international assistance. And then also COVID-19 situation also is worsening. And then during the third wave, we lost too many lives. So if you look, during the first wave of COVID pandemic, it was under NLD government. I think Burma controlled COVID pandemic most effectively during the first wave and the second wave. But the third wave, the military council even used that pandemic as a tool, a weapon to terrorize the people. So that's the situation. So I think that is what we need. And then Mr. Dr. Lal, I think your question, let me start with the second question, the UN. And the UN, we are, NUG government is a continuation of the previous NLD government, elected by the people. And then our mandate also is based on 2020 November election, in which the people elected overwhelmingly to NLD. So I think we are the continuation of previous government, and then NLD government appointed, for example, UN ambassador for Burma, and then he is still under NUG government. So many diplomats who are working in abroad also are joining a CDM, we call it. They join NUG government. So Ambassador Cho Mutun is still sitting in New York City and is sitting in the UN. So I think this is how we are doing. But now is the credential challenge starting in September, but we could still maintain our seat in the UN. And then I think the second round will coming soon. So I think we need your support all over the world. I think you should support the government, which is elected by the people, mandated by the people, working for the people. So I think that is a very important message. In terms of Rohingya situations, I think repatriation, I think I must confess that in such level, we do not have, I think, day-to-day management policy yet. We are discussing. One of our minister, human rights minister, is particularly dealing with Rohingya issues, and then he has been talking to them every day. But majority of those our Rohingya friends, I think what they call is, CDM is quite a strong word for Burma now, positive word for Burma. Even refugees are engaging CDM, meaning they are not cooperate with the military government, the military council, military junta. So many friends are not willing to cooperate and then work and then go back to, I think, the military council. So I think we will find a solution soon, but with the people government. And then if they go back now, what will be the situation? They fled the country because of this military. And then they are still practicing the same law. If they go back, can we guarantee for them their future? Politically, economically, socially? How we're going to treat them? How the military will treat them? So there is a lot of question we are asking right now. And I think that also will be, I think in this situation, Bangladesh is a very important country. I think you also have to cooperate with us and then talk to us, to the NGG government. I think what is needed now is maybe in terms of this Rohingya issue, if the Bangladesh government is serious, instead of putting their embassy in Yangon and working with the military council, they should first pull out their embassy, withdraw the ambassador and talking to us, and then find the solution together. We cannot put our policy one-sidedly. If we put our policy, we decide something one-sidedly without the participation of Rohingya people, maybe we make a mistake again, like the military. What their demand is, what their desire is, what really they want. We have to engage dialogues with them first. In order to do that, we need a tripartite kind of dialogue. Rohingya community, the host country of Bangladesh, and NUG government. I think that is the kind of thing we have to approach. So people are keeping asking, what is your policy? What is your policy? I think instead of, having a policy one-sidedly, I think after engaging with the people, talk to the people, and then what is the people need? Then based on the people need, if we develop the policy, I think it will be sustainable policy. Otherwise, we will be practicing like the military dictators. So I think this is what our approach is in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the response. I think so it's a well-rounded response. So we'll take, it's a kind of, you have already responded, His Excellency, some of the comments about Rohingya repatriation. But Dr. Khalid Rahman has the following question here. And I'm just flashing it on the screen for all of our audience. And it is, again, going back to the core question of Rohingyas repatriation. And 1.3 million of them are now being housed. And also, I think the one of the aspects of the question is we see that in 2017 the displacement occurred during the past government's regime. So I think the moot part is here. How do you see the essential resolution of the Rohingya crisis? His Excellency has answered quite a bit, but if you have any further comments on that, His Excellency, please go ahead.
I think you mentioned about 2017. This situation, what had happened with Rohingya people is just today happening in my people in Chin State. And in Rohingya case, we did not have, a live photo and a live video. But now, the drone pictures just broadcasting right now. So I think they are committing the same, crime against humanity, not only in 2017, but till today, just today, in Chin State, Granny State, Kachin State, all over the country. Sky divisions, which is majority Burma, Magwe, Mandalay, Yangon, all over the country. That is the situation. So our struggle is exactly the same as the Rohingya were facing in 2017. So in this situation, when the military council is still committing this crime against humanity and destroying people's life like in 2017, what is the guarantee for the future? The guarantee is fighting hard against these military regimes and abolish these military regimes and then establish our country into a peaceful and a free and democratic federal union. I think this is the solution. If we have a one-sided policy to Rohingya, and then what is happening? What would be the situation in Chin State, Granny State, all over the country? We are facing exactly the same situation. So unfortunately, Rohingya were single-handedly and they suffer. But actually, in Rohingya suffer in 2017, such a situation already happened in the Karen community for 70 years. Xian community, how many villages are destroyed? The Chin community. Just because we are Chin and we are Christian. You are just because a Muslim and you are just because a Rohingya. So this is the country what went wrong for so long. So I think what we need is a country where all these ethnic groups, a country where all religious groups can living peacefully together, hand in hand. This is our hope. This is what we are striving for. This is what we are struggling for. And then I think Felix also mentioned about the unity. Unity is important, but unity, the way they impose on us, unity for uniformity is unacceptable. A kind of unity that we need is based on mutual recognition and mutual respect. So that's what we call unity in diversity. Please recognize us, our diversity. Recognize Rohingya as a Rohingya, Chin as a Chin, Kachin as a Kachin, Muslim as a Muslim, Buddhist as a Buddhist, Christian as a Christian. Recognize who we are. That is, I think, the first principle that we have to accept. And then based on that kind of mutual recognition and mutual respect, we can build unity in diversity, not unity in uniformity. Otherwise, I think we do not have future. If Rohingyas, how many population, how many number? If we we send them back today, they will suffer again what the Chin people are suffering today. So I think we need to we need to overcome this military dictatorship first. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. The audience, we are absolutely at the end of the session today. We are just over 1 hour and 10 minutes. Thank you so much for being with us. As a tradition, we go back to all the guests and including the special guest today to listen to their last words on the issue. And the title of our thematic area today, Peace by Peaceful Means. So we are going to go to a reverse order. I would like to request Dr. Hilal very briefly to say a few words. What do you think about the future of unity, as the special guest rightly mentioned, unity in diversity? Dr. Hilal, and then I will request Professor Imdad, and followed by David Newman.
Yeah, thank you very much. My comment is very simple. Military intervention is politics is a curse. That's the simple thing. And in Myanmar, it has become the biggest curse, I believe. And there were different instances in Bangladesh, especially mass upsurge of 1990, mass upsurge of 1969. We have been seeing some signs of people's movement, people's resurgence, sometime in 1988 and other times. So probably that also need to be consideration of the unity government, that people's movement can also be ignited or somehow inspired, can be supported beside armed movement, and also the movement formal, I think, institutional movement to oust the military government. So side by side, probably people's movement, igniting people's movement to some extent would be necessary once again, because we have seen over the last couple of months the atrocities that the military government perpetrated on the people, those who took to the streets. But still, I think there are prospects, and I don't know why that movement just died down all on a sudden. Probably the unity government need to take care of that there was a prospect, and that prospect died down. We need to have that once again ignited and inspire people to take to the street for their rights and to press their voice. Thank you.
Professor Imdad, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kausar. I have a strategic comment. I think it's a good opportunity to communicate with Dr. Sakhong, because you're in the ministry. I have an observation to share with you. The learning from Afghanistan is that the interest of international community and their mobilization cannot resolve a problem of ethnicity and other internal diversity. I think it is the inner dialogue and the unity among all the ethnic groups as well as other mainstream groups that can fight and find the solution to this Burmese cause. Because I think that internal dynamics and that unity, because fighting by the Chin or Rakhians or others as individual ethnic group against the junta, against a vested interest, will never win. It is the unified force of the internal ethnic groups within Burma that can ultimately win it. Not international vested interest, nor individual fight. It is the unified fight that can bring about your win. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. David, please.
Yeah, very quickly. One name that hasn't been mentioned is Bob Ray, the Canada's UN representative who was a special envoy to Bangladesh for the Rohingya. I would like to just suggest the solution here could be contributed to greatly if Canada and Bangladesh and maybe together India as well could be part of a solution based on our experience as countries that have struggled with and are making progress in dealing with issues of diversity and certainly federalism and sustainable peace, order, and good government. So the United Nations, through Bob Ray, and having a relationship together with Bangladesh and coming up with a solution, because the best solution is going to come out of neighbors, not distant, privileged countries like Canada. But if we can help activate the United Nations in a good way through Bob Ray, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Felix, your last words, please.
Yes, I would like just to highlight really, I think it really is a very worrisome development that Dr. Sakhong mentioned. I mean, the new fighting in Chin State and likely in Kachin area. I mean, this is of course leading to new dynamics and to new also international implications. And I hope anyone, I mean, also listening to the call is or to this webinar is aware of the implications that also then might be caused, and that especially in this very difficult terrain that Chin State is located in, for instance, that people can be helped who have been affected by fighting. Because at the end, I mean, these communities in remote areas, I mean, of course, I mean, I have been undergoing tremendous struggle. I mean, we saw it in Mindat, and it's very worrying to hear that this has now expanded also to close to the capital, to Hakka area, Tatlang, and the like. So I hope all your friends and relatives in that area are safe, and hope that an international response can really help with these developments unfolding.
Thank you, Mr. Felix. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to our special guest, His Excellency Dr. Lian, for his kind and I would say last words on this occasion. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you and then to your audience. I think all the audience and those who are listening to us tonight will understand a better situation in Burma. And then I think your support and your assistance is we need so much. I think we need various kind of assistance, moral support, material support, everything, and diplomatic support and so on. I think that is very, very important. And just to comment on your final comment is that I think people movement is not dying down, still going and still strong. But the way we saw on the street demonstration could not be happen under this military gunpower. The military is shooting them, peaceful demonstration, and killing them and arresting them. But they are still doing in many different ways, as I mentioned. And so we will never give up. We will not give up this time. We have to win it. And then I think the people also are I think Mr. Mdad, your comment, I think is a very very valid uniting force. And then can only be I think the final bring a final victory. Now, as I mentioned in my first remark, we are now united. The whole country is united for one cause, the same objective, federal democratic union for freedom, to free ourselves from military dictatorship. So now Chin are not fighting alone. Burma are not fighting alone. Kachin are not fighting alone. We all are fighting together. I think you can never imagine a country is such united in this special way. Of course, there were our differences, but as I mentioned, for example, in UCC process, we engage dialogue while we are fighting. We try to find a solution. We try to solve our differences and so on. So I think that is a very important the process that we are engaging, fighting, and then also engaging dialogue among ourselves. I think it has to be done simultaneously, not one after another. Sometimes they call that democracy first. After democracy, we'll solve ethnic problems. It doesn't happen. It never happened. So we have to do it simultaneously. So I think that's where we are engaging quite a lot of activities simultaneously. And the lucky thing for us, NUG government, is now we are operating online quite a lot. So for example, this is my 7th meeting for today. If it's a physical meeting, I would not be able to engage more than 3. But in this room, I sit and then shifting one from another. In one day, 5 to 7 meetings. So I think that is quite effective in a way. And then Mr. David Newman, your comment was very interesting. I met Bob Ray in 2017. And then Bob Ray has established a Forum of Federation, the NGO, which we are working, my ministry is working very closely with Forum of Federation. They are advising and then give us a lot of technical assistance to us. So I thank you. And then I think the dimensions, that the area that you have mentioned about engaging the UN through Bob Ray, it would be very interesting. It would be very, please lobby for us. Please tell Mr. Bob Ray that we need him. So if needed, I can contact him, or please tell me, tell him that we are willing to engage with him. And Felix, thank you so much for your knowledge, and thank you so much for, I think, your contributions. Please do more research, and then please do, I think we need a scholar like you who can tell the world our problems, and then I think make your voice for the voiceless people of Burma. And then Dr. Ahmed, thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege to host His Excellency Dr. Lian today, and we are absolutely proud to have such a dialogue. And just a brief recap before I formally conclude, that this is the first step that we connected with NUG directly from a representative perspective, and we have listened to various dimensions of this complex situation that is prevailing since the independence of Burma. And in our first book, which is available in the market, we titled Rohingya Crisis and Peace Building Avenues, Dr. Hilal and I actually, first time, I think, from the Western perspective, we shed light on the struggles of ethnic minorities in Myanmar, and where we mentioned the peace process that Dr. Lian rightfully mentioned today, and the essential struggles of achieving federalism in Burma. So, dear audience, if you have time, have a look in our book, which is widely available in Amazon, and we are also working on the second book now with from the same publisher, where we are going to focus mostly on the struggles of the host country to accommodate 1.3 million Rohingyas. As we leave today, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to request you to reflect back what His Excellency Dr. Lian has shared with us. The situation is really complex. As you have rightly heard from Professor Imdad, that it is not only one front that the people of Burma, they are struggling. There are multiple fronts. You have rightfully heard from Mr. Felix, who's working in the development sector for some years. So this is not, there is no easy solution for that. And if you have carefully listened to Dr. Lian's comments, it's a struggle of 70 years. And the one good part is that what you have heard, NUG is concerned and they are mindful about the rights of Rohingyas of repatriation. And that is one of the prime things I would like to share with the audience, that we work on the human rights front from our think tank organization, and we value rights of all the people of Burma, including Rohingyas. And last but not the least, we always wish that Rohingyas would go back with full dignity and citizenship to their homeland. And I hope now we have Dr. Lian with us for the next couple of seconds, maybe. We'd like to press forward the idea and our support that Rohingyas' conditions and concerns should be taken into due consideration in the future of Burma, where there is no persecution and no discrimination against each other. And with this word, I would leave you today. And once again, my sincere thanks to all of you, those who have listened to us so patiently for 1 hour and 26 minutes. It is a fascinating dialogue, and we'd like to continue engaging Dr. Lian's group. And so on that ground, sir, we would like to request you once again to join with us, and we'd do our best to connect Honorable Bob Ray in the UN, and we have a fresh dialogue on in the subsequent episodes. So thank you very much wherever you are. Stay well and stay fine. And we are all for peace by peaceful means for all the people of Burma, because Burma is a unified and should be a unified state for all the sake of peace and prosperity. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.